and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today I'll be continuing with my college football schedule preview and point spread prediction videos with the Ole Miss Rebels. So Ole Miss has one of the toughest schedules in the country in 2026. The non-conference schedule is tougher than it was last season because, well, they do still get 2 guaranteed wins against Charlotte, who is one of the worst group of 5 teams, and Wofford, who is an FCS team. Tulane was the best team that Ole Miss played last year in the non-conference, and this year they play Louisville, who should be a better team than Tulane was last year, and they're playing them on a neutral field in Nashville, Tennessee. So Louisville is a team that I think there's a good chance will be in the preseason AP top 25, and if they're not in it, they'll be ranked right outside of it. And while there are a lot of ACC teams that a team like Ole Miss would love to play as a non-conference opponent, Louisville is not one of them because in the 3 years that Jeff Brom has been at Louisville, while they've never been the ACC's best team, they've been the ACC's most consistently good team. And Brom has gotten a big win in at each of his first 3 years at Louisville. And the conference schedule is a lot harder because they will play 4 different conference opponents than they did last year. So last year they played Kentucky, Arkansas, and South Carolina, and this year they will play instead Texas, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. So Texas obviously is what makes it a lot harder than last year. But Missouri is probably going to be a better team than Kentucky or Arkansas will be. And the most unusual part of this schedule is Ole Miss does not have to play Arkansas. This will be the first time since 1980 that Ole Miss and Arkansas won't be playing each other. But Ole Miss does have a few familiar opponents coming back that have been missing for the last 2 years. Auburn, who is one of their SEC West opponents, and Vanderbilt, who was their cross division rival. And as an Ole Miss fan, I don't like where the bye week comes because even though it comes in between back-to-back road games, it comes before Vanderbilt, who, even though they're coming off of their best season in school history, they still have the smallest stadium in the SEC. And with Ole Miss and Vanderbilt only being about 4 hours apart, Ole Miss is likely to have even more fans there than Vanderbilt will. And while I'm not going to say this is an almost guaranteed win for Ole Miss, I do think it's a very likely win for them. So Georgia at home and then Oklahoma on the road is by far the toughest 2 game stretch on this schedule. It doesn't get much tougher than that. Going 2-0 and that is unlikely. And the only 2 game stretch that I've seen so far that might match that is Indiana's hosting Ohio State and then going on the road against Michigan. But this game against Missouri is going to be interesting because Missouri's new quarterback is Austin Simmons, who was the starting quarterback for Ole Miss the first 2 games of last season before suffering what was a pretty severe ankle injury, and that gave Trinidad Chambliss a chance to start. And even though Simmons did fully recover from the injury. Chambliss was so good that he couldn't be taken out. And Chambliss now will get to compete against who he took the starting quarterback position away from accidentally. I don't blame Simmons for leaving because even though he left before it was confirmed that Chambliss would be eligible for 2026, it it was known at the time that Simmons left that Chambliss was going to try to come back this year. And while I am thrilled to have Trinidad back, I do hate to lose Simmons because I think he would have been a good quarterback for Ole Miss in 2027 because watching him play last year, the talent was obvious. He just needs to work on those interceptions. So Ole Miss's three permanent opponents uh, will be Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and LSU. It's no surprise that they got Mississippi State as one of their permanent rivals because Mississippi State, even though Ole Miss has played a lot of different teams every year for long periods of time, is Ole Miss's only one true rival. And while I wouldn't say that's a almost guaranteed win for Ole Miss this year, I would say it's a likely win for them. Now, Oklahoma is surprising because while they have played each other these 2 years that Oklahoma has been in the SEC, before Oklahoma joined the SEC, Ole Miss and Oklahoma really had no history against each other. They played each other once in a bowl game in the 90s, and that's it. And that's not good for me that they're getting Oklahoma as a permanent rival because my dad's an Oklahoma fan and I like to watch a lot of their games with him. But them getting LSU as a permanent opponent is interesting because even though they've been playing LSU every year anyway, and this was decided before Kiffin left. Now they're going to be going against their ex-coach every year. And I think this is the biggest game of the season for Ole Miss. And if it wasn't so hot at that time of the year, I would go to it. I think this is going to become a very bitter rivalry because Kiffin didn't leave Ole Miss on good terms at all. He lied by claiming that the Ole Miss players wanted him to coach them in the playoffs, even though he was leaving for another team. A claim that several Ole Miss players have denied since then. And Xavier Harris, who played defensive line for Ole Miss, said recently that Kiffin had told them that he wasn't actually considering taking another job and then left them out of nowhere. Now, Xavier Harris is going to the NFL, but a lot of players on this 2026 Ole Miss team are players that Kiffin coached, and they would love to beat him after what he pulled last year. And what's surprising is most of the players from the 2025 Ole Miss team that didn't go to the NFL are not only not following Lane Kiffin, they're staying at Ole Miss. I'm shocked that Ole Miss didn't lose Kaiwan Lacey to LSU because he knew Kiffin even before he transferred to Ole Miss. Because Lane Kiffin tried to recruit him, and when he chose to go to Missouri instead of Ole Miss, Kiffin told him, "I'll see you next year." Now, I'm not as surprised that Ole Miss didn't lose Trinidad Chambliss to LSU because uh, they did keep Joe Judge, their quarterbacks coach, who Chambliss was actually closer with than he was Kiffin. But this is going to be a big matchup also because LSU, I think, is going to be a preseason top 15 team. And Ole Miss, well, I'm usually good at predicting where the AP is going to rank a team in the preseason. There's a wider range of possibilities with them, I think. Because they got Chambliss back, I could see them being in the top 10 in the AP preseason rankings, but because they lost Kiffin, I could also see them being more like at 20. But I would say with this schedule, 10-2 is the ceiling. But anything below 8-4 would be a huge disappointment. But going on the road against Florida is going to be a tough one because not only is that a tough place to play, the Florida coach, John Sumrall, though, is a coach that Pete Golding has already went against in his only 3 games as a head coach. But he will have a lot more talent to work with at Florida than he had at Tulane. If there is a minus at the beginning of the spread, that means that Ole Miss is the favorite. And if there is a plus at the beginning of the spread, that means that they are the underdog. So a 20 plus spread means it's a blowout. And there are 2 of those, Charlotte and Wofford. And a 10-19 spread is medium and there's 2 of those, Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. A 6-9 spread is close, but there'll be a clear favorite, and there's 2 of those, Missouri and Auburn. And a 1-5 spread means it's almost a complete toss-up, and there's 6 of those, Louisville, LSU, Florida, Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma. So Charlotte, I would say Ole Miss will be about a 40-point favorite in. If I had to guess the exact spreads of these games right now, and I'd say Ole Miss would be about a 50-point favorite against Wofford, probably even more than that. And I'd say they'd be a 3-point favorite against Louisville, and I'd say a 3-point favorite over LSU, but only because it's a home game. If it was a road game, I'd have it the other way around, and I'd say Ole Miss will be a 3-point favorite against Florida, but only because it's a road game. If that was a home game, I'd have it in the 6-9 range. I'd say Ole Miss will be a 7-point favorite against Missouri, but that would be in the 1-5 range if it was a road game. And I'd say they'd be a 4 or 5 point underdog against Texas, but at home that would be really close to a toss up. And Auburn, I would say Ole Miss will be a 7-point favorite in, but if that was on the road, that would be in the 1-5 range. And Georgia, I'd say will be about a 1-point favorite over Ole Miss. And Oklahoma, I'd say will be favored by a point or 2 over Ole Miss, but only because it's on the road. If that was a home game, Ole Miss would be a slight favorite, and I'd say Ole Miss will be favored by about 14 points against Mississippi State and about 14 points against Vanderbilt. So that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.